Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar, How to Leverage LinkedIn, brought to you by your Vanderbilt Alumni Association. I'm Kate Graham, and I serve as the Associate Director for Campus Engagement in the Alumni Relations Office. Thrilled that you have joined us today. We will give everyone a minute or so to log on, and in the meantime, I just want to provide you all with some details about today's webinar. This webinar will last approximately 45 minutes, and there will be an opportunity for Q&A towards the end of the presentation. Should you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to submit those via the chat function. Also, this webinar will be recorded, and we will add the webinar to our Alumni Association website, and we'll also email you the direct link in the coming days, so be on the lookout for that. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Hallie Crawford. Many of you know Hallie from previous Vanderbilt alumni career offerings, and we are excited to have her back to lead today's session.
Thanks.
Hallie has been a certified career coach, speaker, author, and national career expert since 2002. Her company, Create Your Career Path, is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and she is regularly featured in the media such as Forbes, CNN, Money Magazine, and the Wall Street Journal, just to name a few. She holds undergraduate and graduate degrees from Vanderbilt University and the University of Illinois. And with over 2,000 success stories, her team of coaches and resume writers help professionals find jobs that make them want to jump out of bed in the morning and go to work. And with that, I'll turn it over to Hallie.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. And the noise just a second ago, I'm shifting my computer around my laptop a little bit just to make sure, because I get excited when I host these webinars and I tend to lean in a little bit too much. So I wanted to just make sure that was okay. Thrilled to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And what we have found, since the beginning of this year is that this LinkedIn thing is just becoming more and more important for so many different reasons, but we've also seen more and more people contacting us about their LinkedIn, because I think people are understanding and getting just how critically important it is for so many reasons. So we're going to talk today about a lot of things related to LinkedIn, starting out with talking a little bit about your profile and how to kind of get into the weeds a little bit more with some of the tips and tricks to leverage it for different purposes too. So as Kate said, and I won't take too long with this because she did a great introduction already, the advice that we're going to give you today is advice that we give to all of our clients to help them leverage LinkedIn more effectively for whatever goal it is that you need it. So we are going to be talking about job search strategies related to LinkedIn today, but just please know that even if you're more looking for LinkedIn to talk about professional development or for branding, the tips that we're going to give you are going to be relevant for your situation as well. So as Kate said, I've been coaching since 2002. There's a lot more gray hair going on under here. I just get a little bit better about covering it up here. And I'm a very proud Vandy grad. So I especially love hosting to my fellow alumni. So why is LinkedIn important? I think we all kind of know some of this, so we won't spend a ton of time on this, but what we have found is that LinkedIn is just so important. And again, not just for job searching, but it's such a good, important resource for your professional development, for branding yourself, for putting yourself out there more and positioning yourself as an expert in your industry and like just being more well known. Okay. So that when it is time to conduct a job search or get a promotion or whatever it is, you've got a really good presence there. There's a ton of users. And I know that a lot more people are thinking about leveraging LinkedIn because they have either been laid off or they're concerned about it. So this is part of why I know we've seen an uptick in it. But I also really feel like even before this year, before layoffs were really starting, that people were just like more interested in getting to understand LinkedIn and all of the good tools it can offer. One of the things to note for job seekers especially is that employers and recruiters report that a ton of their recruiting is conducted through LinkedIn. So this is an obvious, like huge reason for job seekers why you really need to pay attention to it. We actually had on one of our webinars earlier this year, a recruiter who was on the call, and she said that she would actually go to her industry specific LinkedIn groups that she was a part of to try to find possible candidates there. Because when she was looking at those people first, she knew that they cared a little bit more about their professional development. They're good at networking, all of those other good things. So one of the things we'll talk about today is LinkedIn groups, and especially your Vanderbilt LinkedIn alumni group, really important. But again, it's getting noticed on LinkedIn, and this is why it's so critically important. If we take a look at the next slide for a second, there are lots of different reasons why we want you to consider using LinkedIn more. Branding yourself, positioning you as an expert, like we said. But the other things that are cool is that it can help you not just stay connected with those in your industry, but help you exchange ideas, stay in the know with like industry trends, what's going on within your field. It obviously is a tool to help you strengthen and expand your network. But we have also found that for people in certain types of roles, especially ones that are more client facing or more prominent within an organization, it can help them increase their sales. It can help them enhance their client relationships. There was a workshop I conducted, and this was actually years ago, so it's even more so now. It was before COVID in Texas, and it was for a financial services organization that served the construction industry. Excuse me. And those people there, it was salespeople, but otherwise too. They said that before they got on a prospective client call or reached out to someone to partner with someone, et cetera, they would notice that that person would check them out on LinkedIn first before hopping on that call. And we all know that, we do that. We can kind of stalk people this way in a good way professionally. So again, these are the different reasons why I want you to consider it, even if you're not in job search mode. So here's our agenda for today. So just as a quick kind of housekeeping reminder, you will receive a copy of the recording from today. And if you would like a copy of our slides, you can email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. That's at the bottom of the slide here on the left-hand side, and I'm going to put this in here. So if you'd like to get a copy of the slides, you can just email us and we'll send those over to you. And the three basic things we're going to be talking about today are your profile and certain things we really want you to pay attention to. Making connections and expanding your network, because the magic number is 500 plus. It gives you more access to different resources and tools on LinkedIn when you have 500 or more connections. And we're also going to talk about sharing valuable information. And as Kate said, we will have time for Q&A at the end. So please feel free to put in the chat questions that you have, even along the way. If there's a critical mass of questions, I'll pause halfway and I'll respond to those, but you don't have to hold your questions till the end. And if for any reason we don't get to your question today because we run out of time, etc., please feel free to hold on to this email, because I'd be happy to answer those for you later on, even if you think of something in the next couple of weeks that you'd like to ask. All right. So let's dive in. And before we get to talking about your profile, one of the things I always like to tell our clients is that we know that LinkedIn and dealing with all of this and updating your profile, everything else can feel really overwhelming. So don't see this as, okay, I'm going to sit down for an hour and I'm going to do all this stuff Hallie says and everything's going to be great. Like, see your LinkedIn profile as a tool that you're going to use on an ongoing basis, and as something like that's organic and you can change and tweak over time. It's not just one and done. So you want to give yourself the next several weeks to start implementing some of these steps that we're talking about, whether it's updating your profile and making some tweaks and changes to it, like your picture, branding it more effectively, or SEO, which is search engine optimization. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. It could be that you're like, okay, I need to start at the point where I'm making new connections here, and how to deal with accepting and sending requests and getting help from your network. And we're also going to talk about sharing information too. So I guess part of what I want to say here, and then we'll go ahead and launch our first poll in 1 second, is if it feels overwhelming to you, we totally understand that. Go step by step in this order as it's presented on the slide. Start with updating your profile a little bit more, then start with reaching out to people a little bit more. And then you can add that extra layer, like in the next couple of weeks or the next month or whatever, where you're posting things on LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. So our first poll, if we could launch that, that would be great. And this is how many have a 100% complete profile. Now, I want to caveat this for a second, because there's actually some advice I wanted to give related to this. We know that there is a lot of different stuff on LinkedIn now, right? You can put publications, you could put articles you've written. There's all these different kind of sections on LinkedIn, and it can feel overwhelming for people. Please know that you do not have to have something in every single section of LinkedIn. That is not the goal. The goal is for you to have the most relevant, pertinent, useful, good information on there that can either help you get a new job or brand you effectively. So when we're talking about a 100% complete profile, we don't mean every single thing has something in it. Okay. It means that you feel good about, like, you've got the majority of the content that you want on there. The majority of the sections are at least started or filled out, something like that. And please know, part of why we ask this poll too is to let you know you're not alone, that there's plenty of people out there that are still working on this, and that's okay. It's normal. Okay, so we'll give you a minute to complete this. And I'm always curious to see this, because I have seen over the course of even the last year that just more and more people have a complete profile, which is good. So we're heading in the right direction. All right, and when we've got a critical mass, we'll go ahead and share. This is a good time for me to get some water because I talk a lot during these. Okay, great. Good. Again, 57%. If you take a look at the results, you do. That's awesome. And for the 43% that don't, like I said, you're not alone. Take these steps to kind of make those changes and tweaks over time. Okay. So try to get it to 100% in the way that makes the most sense for you, as we were just talking about. Okay. So let's dive in with our first step here, and this is your profile. And there are certain things that people sometimes still ask us about or don't do or whatever, and those are the things that we want to focus on. So number one, you do need to have a photo. Absolutely. I know some people are either shy about this or they're concerned about ageism or those types of things too, but it's really important for you to have a photo for all the reasons listed on the slide here on the left. Okay. And one of the things that we want you to think about, especially if you're in job search mode and you feel comfortable on video, you can get more comfortable with it and get on camera, that type of thing. We would recommend, we're not saying that this is a must and an absolute, have to have, but it can help you kind of push yourself to the top of the pack in terms of job searching, so that people really get a sense of who you are and can connect with you more. You can create a quick video introduction of yourself, and you can put a link to that in your About section, just as one example, as a way to kind of get noticed. And what we would have you do is you need to keep it really short and sweet. So it's like 60 seconds or less. And it could be that you just include like your elevator speech and kind of say that and let people know what you're looking for. And a brief like career history, like why you're fantastic at what you do. So it could almost be a little bit like if you were in an interview and they ask that first question, tell us about yourself. It could be like your response to that. Okay. If you're not in job search mode and you're in sales or something customer facing, you could just do a quick video that's like background about who you are and your organization and your company, that type of thing. So because we're in such, obviously a digital age, this is something that can help you stand out from the crowd. I know that my marketing team is pushing me to put more videos on my website just because it's more appealing to people. So a couple of things that we also wanted to reference is some of the requirements for your headshot are at the top. I know these seem obvious, but I've still had some people come to us and they've like, one guy he was kind of looking to the side and I was like, okay, yeah, no, this isn't glamour shots. It needs to be just straight on and professional looking, but also like warm. And because we had another person that came to us to work with him on his LinkedIn, and he just looked like he was like angry. So smiling, warm, that type of thing. We'll show you an example on the next slide. We also want you to definitely create a branded image for your banner. And what I mean by that is right here, just going to show you this real quick. This is the banner right here. And we're going to go back for just a second. We'll come back to this in a moment. So a couple of things you could use for your image. LinkedIn does have some examples that they'll let you use, or, templates, whatever you want to call it. So you can use some of those as a starting point if you want. But what we like is for people to either put their company logo, put like a nature scene or the city skyline where they live. It could be something else relevant to your industry, or it could be something else personal to you. So one of our clients, for example, he's got a picture of him and his son on the top of a mountain snow skiing, and that's like a talking point for him. So we want you to have some kind of image there that helps brand you a little bit more, like this is who this person is. Okay. And then as part of that, we want you to have like a tagline here too. And we'll talk about this for just a minute here, because I want to point out a few things. So first of all, you see her headshot is clean, professional, all that good stuff, but also warm. Now this person, she's in a more informal industry. She is in veterinary pharmaceutical sales. And so she can get away with having a dog's nose behind her head, right? Because they're crazy about their dogs. And when they do all these team calls, their animals and their pets are, all over the place on the team calls with them. But it's also like she has a passion for animals. That's why she does what she does. But the other thing that we like here too, and I would actually argue that I'd like this to be a little bit darker, this text, so that there's a little bit more contrast here. But it's kind of like a job title, if you will, and a tagline. And we really like it when people do this, especially when they're in job search mode, because again, it helps the person who's landed on your profile know exactly who you are, and it's branding you, like telling them like why you're cool, why you'd be qualified for their job. Okay. The other thing to notice here, and actually if we could launch our second poll, that would be great. I know we're kind of doing the first two back to back. The third one's a little bit later. We're curious who does have a branded banner. The other thing that I want you to notice or pay attention to here on this particular slide is that you also want to make sure that under your name, which is our header, that's what we're talking about, or that's what we call it, you either want to have your job title, if you're looking for a job that is similar to what you've been doing before, or if you're looking to make a career shift or something, do something a little bit different, have the title that is looking forward, like speaking to the type of job that you want to go for. And part of what we want is we want you to use all of the characters in this header, because this is one of the places it's important to be keyword optimized. Okay. So as you complete this poll, this particular person, she wasn't and is not in job search mode. So for her, job title, professional service, like, okay, cool, that's great. But for people who are looking for a new job and really want to be noticed and found on LinkedIn, you want to use all of the characters here to talk about what your strengths are. Like if you are a mentor leader, or if you're a graphic designer, those types of things, and add to it, because that's a place that it needs to be search engine optimized as well. And we'll talk about those things just a little bit more in the next couple of slides too. So we'll give you a second to do the branded banner one. And I have found also, understandably, more and more people are jumping on the bandwagon with these two, which I think is great. It's just it's such a personal, like good window into who you are as a person and, professionally too. Okay, so 80% don't. That's why you're here. It's totally fine. This is one of the things you want to start working on. Okay. And this is something that we help our clients with all the time too. And for those 20%, that's great. You may want to make changes and adjust it over time and kind of mix it up a little bit too. All right. So one of the other things, if we look at and continuing to talk about your profile, but we're also thinking about your contact information and URL. And I'm going to go back to the other slide just to show you what I'm talking about. One thing that our clients tend to forget is they don't have all of their contact information listed and visible on LinkedIn. And when you're in job search mode, we want people to be able to not just contact you on LinkedIn, but also via email and phone call. Okay. So it's important to have all of your contact information right there so that people can contact you. We also want you to customize your URL. Is this life or death? Absolutely not. But if you can shorten it up, include your name and fewer numbers, it just looks a little bit cleaner and more professional. And here's what we want you to do with these things. And then I'll show you what I mean in the previous slide for just a second. We want you to add a live link, like a hyperlink, to your LinkedIn profile, to your email signature line, especially if you're in job search mode, but even outside of that too, because this is part of using LinkedIn for branding purposes. So go ahead and add that so that people know how to get in touch with you and know how to find your information online. If you're adding, or when you are adding your LinkedIn link to your resume and your header, it needs to be text only, because links, live links and resumes can trip up those applicant tracking system scanners. So you want to make sure it's just text only. This is part of why it's nice to have it be customized and a little bit shorter and nicer. And text only to your cover letter header as well. But everywhere else, it can be a live link. So just really quickly here, let me go back for a second. What we're talking about is contact info here is when someone clicks on this, they're able to view not just your LinkedIn profile URL, but also your phone number and email address. And if you're worried about like spammers or, I know putting your cell phone out there, which I totally understand, you can get a free Google Voice number that can help like block and deal with some of that too. That's what some of our clients will do. So these are some kind of basic things that people usually skip over because they don't think there is a big of a deal. And every time I go to a prospective client's contact info, it's not there. So I always like to tell people this. Let's talk next about your about section. Your about section, we want it to be a little bit more personal. You can use first person, and we encourage you to do that, even if the beginning of your about section is third person because you've lifted some of it from your resume summary, that's fine. But we'd like you to have at least one or two sentences at the end that are first person so that you're talking to the reader. You can do that on LinkedIn, and we want you to. Your resume is a little bit more formal and only third person. LinkedIn can be more first person, if you will. But one of the things that we want you to consider and looking at this ideal career model. So this is the model that I developed a long time ago to help our clients figure out their career trajectory, enhance their job search, and also better understand their brand. When you're looking at your about section, thinking about updating your experience section, etc., we want you to also include soft skills, not just these are my strengths, this is my education and experience, really important. But we also want you to talk a little bit about, like, you have a really strong work ethic. You're very detail oriented. You're a great big picture strategic thinker. Whatever those soft skills are that you also bring to the table, those are things that you want to be mentioning in your about section as well, because that's what can help kind of tip you over the edge to actually getting the job when they're looking at people kind of across the board who have a similar skill set or, experience to you. That can help you get the job. Okay. As part of your about section, we talked about this already, and let me just kind of reiterate it for a second. The only kind of caveat with using first person in your about section or not is if you are in a more formal field, like legal or, banking or analytical or something like that, it's totally okay. We said this a second ago, but you may want to err on the side of being a little bit more formal in your about section. And then at the very end, you can have like that one sentence with first person. Okay. But if you are in a more, human services type of field, like we are, for example, and you're speaking to your customer or whatever it is a little bit more, it's okay to use that more narrative, like first person throughout your whole about section. Okay. Couple more things with your profile and looking at your experience section next. There's two things that we want you to consider. Obviously, with your experience section, we want you to be as results oriented as possible. We also tell our clients that you don't want to have like 10 bullet points in your experience section, because you want them to be able to get down quickly to, your other things. I know they minimize it, but what our LinkedIn expert tells people is that we want your LinkedIn to be a little bit more of a teaser to your resume. So you want to have like 5 bullet points, give or take, for each of your jobs. And as you get to your older experience, you may have just one or one quick description, and that's it. The more recent ones are obviously going to be more important. But 2 other things you want to consider with your experience is we like to suggest to clients that you pick up an excerpt from your recommendations on LinkedIn and put those testimonials in your experience section, an excerpt of it. If it's a long paragraph, you don't want to plop that whole thing in there. Just pick up, part of it. But it's nice to do that because then they're more highly visible within your profile versus having to scroll all the way at the bottom. And in your experience section, we do want you to consider including an article that you published, a PowerPoint presentation you gave to a client or at a conference once, a graphic chart, like whatever it is that may be relevant for showcasing how you work and how you think. Now, obviously, with this kind of stuff, it's going to be, out there in the public. So it can't be something confidential to your organization. You got to be careful about that. But we do want you to consider adding some artifacts in there so that, again, it can help you stand out from the crowd and kind of round out your candidacy, if you will. With our final tip with your profile, let's talk about these. And I see 2 questions and I'll pause and answer those while we're at it. Make sure that you use those keywords that people would be looking for. The sections on your profile that you want to search engine optimize would be your header, your about section, and your skills section at the bottom. Let me say something about this. In the past, the skills section, people were like, does it even really matter? And people really weren't using it. And I don't think LinkedIn honestly was using it in the way that they do now. It actually is really important now. Our resume expert and LinkedIn expert will give our clients up to like 40 skills that they want to have on there. I know that seems overwhelming, but he's telling me, and other people have told me too, that it does matter that you get that list to be a little bit more comprehensive, because it is one of the ways that people will find you for possible jobs. We'd recommend getting recommendations, at least 2 or 3 to start out with, and make sure that you go through your settings to ensure that you click the button that is, I want to be viewed by employers, like I'm open to new opportunities, so that those people know that you're looking and you are open to being contacted versus, being closed down or private. Okay. So one question, what is meant by 100% complete profile? As I was saying a little bit earlier, it does not have to be exactly 100%, like every single section is completely filled out. It would be that every section that would be relevant to your candidacy would be filled out. So, if you've got like articles that you have published and they would be relevant for the jobs you're applying to, you want to make sure that they're in there. But it does not mean that every single section has to be completed in your profile. Second question is, for forward-looking titles, how do you do this without misrepresentation? Yeah, this is kind of on a case-by-case basis that we help clients with this, because you can't lie and say that you're a project manager and you've never done project management, right? So you need to come up with some words or language that can still be true and like realistic and authentic or accurate for your previous experience, but also helps like sell you for that next job. And there are ways to do this. You kind of just got to think outside the box a little bit more. And you cannot say, though, for example, and this is a silly example, like I couldn't suddenly put on my profile just because I wanted to be a dentist that I am a dentist in the header. That's not good. I would have to, say something else, like if I'm in dental school or, something like that. Great question. Thanks for asking. Let's look at step number 2, and this is making connections. As I said a few minutes ago, your goal actually is to expand your network and try to get to that 500 plus number of connections. When LinkedIn first started, they were very adamant about, and it was like, no, don't connect with people that you don't know. And, you would get, if you did this too many times or reached out to too many people, you get blacklisted or, taken off LinkedIn or whatever. Times have changed, and it is a little bit more of a, for lack of a better way to say it, a popularity contest. So when you get up to 500 connections and you start moving past that, you get access to more resources on LinkedIn when you're in job search mode. You are obviously have more connections that you can leverage. And so, for example, too, if you're applying for a job, at Accenture or something, you'll have more connections and it'll show you, here are all the different connections you have there. And if nothing else, that helps you enormously, but you do get access to more once you get there. So we actually do want you to literally go through your phone. and see who's in there that you've forgotten about. Uncle Joe, well, he's on LinkedIn. Let me connect with him. Just find friends, family members, former coworkers that you would like to connect with and go ahead and connect with them. Use the Vanderbilt Alumni Association and friends that you know from there. But also like join the Vanderbilt LinkedIn group, because that's a great place for making connections. And those are warmer leads, people that are going to be more likely to respond to you when you ask them for some advice or a little bit of time, or even just to connect with them. That's another place to do that. Consider coworkers in past and your present job as needed and relevant. And you can also start to expand a little bit to leaders in your industry, like those people that you follow their blog or whatever it is, or you just know that are well known, even in your geographic location within your industry. Go ahead and start connecting with them. You can say as simple as, I'd love to stay in touch with you on LinkedIn. I really appreciate your perspective on our field and industry, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be something major, but one of the things when you're connecting with someone from Vanderbilt is you can say, I'm a fellow alum. I'd love to just connect with you and stay in touch in case we can help each other going forward in our professional development. Okay. As part of making connections, there are different ways that you can try to get in front of hiring managers when you are in job search mode. You can try to find them on LinkedIn based on job title and organization name, and see if you can, okay, here are the people that work at this company or organization. See if you can identify who might be there and make an introduction to yourself to see if you can kind of get your foot in the door that way. We realize that not everyone is going to respond to you, and you're going to get plenty of either no or people ignoring you. That's just part of the deal. So we're not sitting here saying that every single person is going to reply and it's going to be, always perfect. This is why the more you do this and the more people you reach out to, the better off you're going to be, because it is a law of numbers, and kind of like the law of sales, you'll get like a 10 or 20% return rate, if that. So the more people you reach out to, the better off you'll be. We do like LinkedIn as a job board. And if we're looking at this next slide, it's important to set up job alerts there. If you see the job application on LinkedIn, but also on the company website, we want you to go ahead and apply on LinkedIn versus the company website, okay? The other thing that we would suggest is to follow companies on LinkedIn that you're interested in, because you can stay in the know with what's going on with them. And we already talked about this third one here, messaging the recruiter from the job alert to express your interest, to kind of get their attention. This is something else you can do to leverage LinkedIn. There's a lot more stuff we can do with LinkedIn to help get in front of people. We've got a bunch of those things in our LinkedIn guide. If anyone wants that, you can just email us and we'll send you a link for that. So in terms of making connections, and there's a couple more things I wanted to say too about like using LinkedIn Premium and all of that, which we'll get to. Remember that when you are networking through LinkedIn, if there is a second or third connection that of someone that that you want to be connected with, don't go right to that person. Ask for an introduction. They're more likely to get back with you, give you time, all of that, okay? So always go through the person in between you, and always include a note inside the invitation. Let them know why you want to connect, and always be clear that you are just asking them for information on, for example, how to put my best foot forward in my search. I'm not here to ask you for a job. Like, you're letting them know clearly, I'm just looking to get your quick advice on one or two things. Okay. So make sure it's really clear what you're asking for, so people don't balk at it and ignore you. Okay. The other reason, well, and I'm going to leave this here, but I want to piggyback on something I just said a second ago. When you're making or asking for a connection request, the best thing to do is to ask that person to copy you on the email or message thread in LinkedIn, because then the other person can see your profile, A, and B, you know who that person is, because then you've got more control. The ball is in your court. You could follow up with that person, okay? And that's what we're going for. The whole like, yeah, send me your resume, I'll pass it along thing doesn't cut it. That's way too passive, okay? So make sure that you're involved in the introduction process as much as possible, okay? We talked about this already, not sending the default message. I think we all understand that. Here on the right-hand side are two examples of kind of templates of content that you could use in order to introduce yourself to someone in connect with them and give them, a reason that you want to connect with them. That's why that's there. Okay. Now, a couple of other things that we want to talk about, and then we'll get to sharing information with your network. And the reason I keep looking back and forth, everyone, I'm sure you know, I've just got two screens here and I control them over here. Okay, so making connections. We do think it's a good idea to turn on your LinkedIn notifications. When you are in job search mode, you're actively looking, that will let your network know when you've either made an update to your profile or you've posted something online. If you are concerned about your employer, coworkers seeing that you're doing stuff to your LinkedIn, don't turn these on. So this is where, if you need to keep your job search more private and confidential, keep all of those notifications turned off and just know that, okay, you'll have to reach out to people a little bit more assertively and frequently on your own. Okay. Use them as appropriate for your situation. Make it a goal that you check and respond to your LinkedIn messages at least twice a week, maybe even 3 times a week. I say daily here if you're in job search mode. Okay. So if you're in active job search mode, it needs to be daily. But if you're kind of, slowly ramping up with your job search, it's okay for it to be a few times a week. But just make sure that's a goal. I know it may seem hard because it's like, okay, I have email, I've got my text, now I've got this. It's really important though. Creating new connections, we've discussed. Joining groups, we've discussed. We'll talk about this a little bit more. And do write recommendations for others as well so that you demonstrate that you give back. Okay. So when we're talking about LinkedIn groups here for a moment, because I think I referenced this later, but just in case I don't, the first one to join is your Vanderbilt alumni group. They do not pay me to say this. I promise. We tell all of our clients this. A second group that you could consider joining is one that is industry specific, that is a little bit more active and has enough people. There's a lot of LinkedIn groups out there that just kind of sit there and nothing happens. So you do want to be a little bit picky about the group that you join, but it can be actually a really good place that you can make new connections. We've had clients make really solid, good networking connections through those, and you can ask for advice about your job search, etc., as appropriate. Let's talk about our third step. And this is our last one, remember, before we get to our Q&A in the next few minutes. So sharing information with your network. This is something we'd like you to start doing, where you're sharing your insights. It could be a creative idea. It could be an inspirational quote or video, something that motivates you, or problem-solving advice. If you are going to either write or share articles, we want them to be concise and worth reading. And we want you to add a little note to why you're sharing that. They've got polls now that you can do on LinkedIn. I don't necessarily think you need to do that, in my opinion, for now. I think those are a little bit better for like business owners like me. But if you can start sharing information with your network once a week, it doesn't have to be all the time because you don't want to blow up the feed and have people start ignoring you. But this can help you kind of stay in front of your network, especially if you're in job search mode. Okay. Participating in LinkedIn groups. Oh, and this is our third poll. So let's go ahead and launch our third and last poll here while we're at it. So we talked about groups just a second ago, and I covered my base already. It's a good idea with these LinkedIn groups, once you join them, to commit to participating at least for 3 or 4 weeks, so that you can see kind of if it's valuable to you, what you get out of it, and if it's worth continuing in, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Try to provide valuable information and be helpful, as well as asking for help too. And when you see people who tend to post a lot in the group, or maybe they ask questions, like they just seem to be a little bit more active in the group, those are the people that you can reach out to a little bit more, or reach out to connect with them. Because if they're being more active in the group, that kind of lets you know that they're the type of person that's most likely a little bit more open to networking. Okay, so you want to keep an eye on that. And if you see like the same few people that are posting most frequently, add them to your network, see if they'd be someone that you'd like to chat with in like an informational interview for a few minutes. All right, so we've got our poll. We'll give you a second to finish this up. We're curious how many actively participate in their LinkedIn. Oh, groups. Sorry. Yeah, well, it says it there. We're fine. But just so you know, too, usually when we ask our clients about this, they're like, oh, yeah, I think I'm a part of maybe a couple groups, but I don't remember. So we know that this could be new for people, and that's okay too. And while we're waiting for the right amount of people to complete the poll too, just wanted to let you all know that we're totally open to talking with anyone further about our coaching services and how we can help you. I know this job searching and LinkedIn thing can feel pretty overwhelming. So happy to do a strategy session with you. It's the same email that you can ask additional questions later if we don't get to them, and also the same one that you would get the slides from too. Okay, so we've got 92%. Understandably, don't pick one, start with like the Vanderbilt one, commit to participating in that one first. Don't try to add a bunch and add to your plate because it'll get too overwhelming and you won't do as much as you would like to. It's better to at least choose like one and say, okay, I'm really going to focus on this one for the next couple of weeks and make sure that I'm paying attention there. Okay. So let's get to our Q&A. I know I said a lot, and I feel like there was one other. Oh, I did want to say something about LinkedIn Premium. That's what it was. So as you're thinking about your action steps that you would like to take, I would love it if you would share in the chat one action step that you would take for this week. Remember, baby steps. It can take time, and that's okay. We've got some examples of things that you could be working on. What we wanted to say about LinkedIn Premium, because a lot of people ask us this, is we do actually feel like it's worth it. I think in the past it was a little bit less so, but they've added to the features and stuff. You usually can get a free month, your first month free. And then after that, I think it's relatively low cost related to the benefits that you get. You get unlimited messaging. And part of what I like about Premium is that you can use the who has viewed my profile feature. Like you can see, unless they're in private mode, which some people still will do, but you can see who's viewed your profile. And for example, we've had clients say, well, I applied for this job, and then the next day I saw someone at the company looked at my profile. Is it, just happenstance? Probably not. And that's a person that you could reach out to and connect with them, or say, would love to pick your brain a little bit more about my application, that type of thing too. So I would add to your list that you check the who has viewed my profile feature at least twice a week if you're in job search mode, and maybe even 3 times a week if you're actively applying and you want to make sure you see who's checking you out. Okay. All right, and we've got the email address there. I'm going to go ahead and start going through the questions that have come through. I know I answered a couple to start with. And then Kate, if there are other ones that you guys see, please feel free to let me know too. Okay, so another one, what do you do? Too many connection requests. Is it polite to accept or be picky about who I add to my network? This is a great question. So if you're above the 500, I would start being picky about who you add to your network because you're already above that threshold, and that's fine. Identifying fake profiles reaching out to you. You know what? I honestly do not know how to deal with this because this has happened to me as well. There might be articles online. What I would be doing is, per what we just said, especially if you're over that 500, I would not just be accepting requests, but I would check them out a little bit first. Notice if they have, like, if their profile is really actually filled out and it seems valid and viable. Because I don't know, I just feel like with human nature a little bit, we can sometimes kind of tell if it's fake. Like, for example, if their profile is like brand new and there's nothing there and it was recently created, but then somewhere they're trying to say that they've had 10 years of experience or something like that. So honestly, I don't know the exact answer to this, but I would just kind of go with your gut and be picky about it and be careful about it. The other thing I will say related to this, and I had never heard this before, but one of our clients, her LinkedIn profile got hacked. And so I actually would go ahead and turn on your 2-factor authentication with it, just because, I think in the scheme of things, people's LinkedIn profiles was sort of last on their list as some, getting hacked. And for her, it has kind of wreaked havoc on her a little bit because she's in job search mode. And I think they messed things up and sent messages out to her connections. So I would take those extra security measures with your LinkedIn profile. especially if you haven't before. I just actually turned mine on yesterday because I got an email from LinkedIn saying that my account password was compromised, and I'm not sure, how that happened, but I just turned it on for myself. So that's also something to just kind of keep in mind. And as we add more personal information there, and you don't want people to get messaged from you, especially when you're job searching, we want to be careful about that too. Any other questions? Let me just see here. Oh, there is one. Yes, at the beginning. I forgot about that one. Okay, good. So another person asked, thank you for this, best ways to develop informational sections of LinkedIn. We talked about experience. Those are the main ones. As far as the other sections, if you have articles or presentations that you want to put up there, you can. Keep in mind that you only want to put things that would help you get the job, that would be relevant. We're not just putting everything plus the kitchen sink, because when you're branding yourself, you don't want to diffuse the brand like, hey, I can do all of these different things. Like, you want to be saying, I can do these things and they're relevant for the jobs I'm applying to. So keep that in mind. How to find people you might be interested in connecting with. I would look through, in some cases, in addition to the things we just talked about, second connections of some of your colleagues. So for example, if you're looking at so-and-so's or a friend of yours or a former coworker's profile, and it says that you're also connected this way, with that person, or even you could look through their connections if they allow that to be open, because sometimes people have it hidden and sometimes they don't. You may want to look through those and see, okay, these might be people I'd like to be connected with. And you could even ask friends and family or coworkers if there is anyone that they think it would be helpful for you to be connected with too. Browse opportunities based on time availability. This is where I would set up those job alerts and have them come to you like once a week or something like that, and set up really good ones so that you're not getting a bunch of junk. And the design tips and tricks, I think we covered that to a certain extent too. The banner is really the most important thing. And if you are like in a design field though, or something like that, or in a leadership role, and you'd like to have like one sheet that's like serves as your portfolio, for example, or would serve as like, this is my leadership style and philosophy. Those are things that you can add to your LinkedIn profile too. Okay, these are great. And I thank you so much for bringing up AI, because clients ask us about this and I meant to bring it up today. Should I use AI to help me create a headshot for my profile? I would go the human route. And here, I think you can use it to maybe give you some ideas. But here's what I say about the AI stuff with resume, LinkedIn, everything else. Recruiters and employers, they can already tell if something was written or done by AI. They know, they can see it, and they don't like it. So I would use it as a tool in your arsenal to help you improve things, maybe word something a little bit better, get some additional ideas, that type of thing. But I wouldn't solely rely on it to create things from scratch, because I don't know how they can tell, but they can. And I was at a training and development workshop 2 weekends ago, and they were in training and development, not even in the recruiting role. Some of them were in talent acquisition, but they were like, hands down, we can tell. Second question, if I write an article to share with my network, how long should it be? So this is a great one too, because I know some people might be like, oh gosh, I'm not going to write an article. So if it's more comfortable for you to share a quick article, write like 2 or 3 sentences about it and maybe ask your network a question, what they think. If you decide you're going to go the route of writing something on your own, have it be like 2 paragraphs, if that, like 1 paragraph, like that's broken up into 2 quick sections. We don't want it to be that long. I find that it's helpful for it to be more like, a teaser about some problem solving ideas or suggestions or those types of things. And if you have written something longer and for whatever reason you want to point people to it off of LinkedIn, you can always upload it to, Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that and do it that way. That's going to the extreme. I would keep things short and sweet. Thanks, Kate, for posting those additional questions. The AI is a really big deal. And I do think it's can be incredibly helpful, and also help you search engine optimize your profile and make sure you're doing it in the right way. But again, don't just rely on it solely, because in some cases, like we had one client who was using AI all the time and his resume just got really, really wordy. And it was just too much. It was like he was trying to be all things to all people. So just use that, human element to things too as you're creating them, especially. Kate, you put the survey in there, which is fantastic, in the chat box. And so far, we don't have any other questions. I hope it's because we answered most of them and not because we overwhelmed everyone. I know it's a lot, like I said. And like I said, just kind of add like one more little thing that you are going to decide that you're going to do to help you with your networking efforts through LinkedIn over time. It doesn't all have to happen absolutely tomorrow. We would love it if you would use our survey or fill out the survey that Vanderbilt has put in the chat, because we'd love to hear what else we can share with you, what other topics would be appealing and helpful, and anything else that we can assist you with. All right. We'll give it another second and see, but I think we might be good, or at least close to good. Yep, I think we got it. I was just double checking that first one too. You're very welcome. Thanks for the kudos. I appreciate it. I think sometimes people are like, coaches don't need kudos or whatever, but we do. We do it for our clients, but it's nice to know. And we hope this was really helpful for you.
Yes,
Kate,
Allie,
anything
thank
that
you
you
so
want to share?
much. We
Yeah.
appreciate your expertise and knowledge, and I know the AI is a hot topic right now, so appreciate that intel and insight. Really thankful for all of your expertise and taking time to be with us this afternoon.
Yeah, no problem. And I think we've got another program, and I meant to say this, but I wanted to make sure we got to the questions first. That's coming up. Is it the 30th for LinkedIn, right? Or job search, sorry.
Yes, the job search bootcamp next week and the first week in September, as well as another webinar later this fall. So to attendees, please be on the lookout for more information about that. Those registration links are listed on our website. So if you'd like to go ahead and sign up, please go ahead and register, and we will share all the information for the boot camps and webinar with you, so you can have that ready to go.
Awesome.
And just like Hallie said, please fill out our post-event survey. We would love your thoughts and feedback, and look forward to seeing everyone on another webinar.
Sounds great. Thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate your time. Our boot camp starts next week, and it's 2 sessions to cover everything related to your job search. So a little bit of the LinkedIn stuff, but everything else that we need to be doing. So please check that out. We'd be happy for you to join us.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Hallie.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Okay, bye-bye.